Deputy Verona Murphy on behalf of the regional group.
Morning, Taoiseach, or afternoon. Much backslapping and a bit of lauding going on. I'm going to bring you very much back down to earth. Well, all of the things that you've announced, nothing has changed in the sector for carers and the home care support. And I've stood here many times, Count Corla, complaining of the issue at hand, and that is that our carers are not available to deliver the home care support service. And it's not all, Taoiseach, just about the fact that we can't get carers. It's about the system in general. Despite the fact that we have the best paid civil servant as the head of the Department of Health, we have 3 ministers all appointed in your time, and yet nothing is changing. In fact, it's getting worse. We have a minister and 2 junior ministers, and we have a home care support system that can't deliver care on a 7-day basis to a 70-year-old, up to his accident, a 74-year-old tax-paying farmer who was taken home by his wife and family to be cared for at home. He's now paraplegic, Count Corla. I've had Mr Cummins' name on the floor of the Dáil before, and despite the fact that the accident happened and he returned home last October, he still only receives 5-day care, 1 hour in the morning, 1 in the evening. And I cannot get an answer from the head of that department in CHO5, Helen McDade. I have sent numerous emails, not even acknowledged, never mind addressed, and I cannot get a return phone call despite leaving several messages, whilst Mrs Cummins has suffered COVID and is not in the same position as she was to deliver her own care for her husband. And yet, we can't get an answer from CHO5. So I empathise greatly with Minister Rabbitte not being able to get an answer, and she's the minister. Now, I believe that this, as the head of government, is your job, Taoiseach. This is your job to address this. Well, let me read you something that's even more tragic that was on our local radio this morning. A call to the Morning Mix Wexford local radio from Sharon Colgan. Sharon suffers with cerebral palsy, and this past weekend she was left alone in a bed that she can't get out of for 19 hours. No food, no water and no toileting. She slept and sat in her own urine for 7 hours. And that's the home care support system that we have, Taoiseach. And if we can't do better, we should be ashamed of ourselves. Here's what the rote letter that the HSE send back every time. The home support service operates within the constraints of available staffing resources, which impacts directly on the ability of a service to be delivered in its entirety. There are significant challenges in sourcing home support services at present. Yes, there is. Lazy admin staff. Because we have many people, and I have spoken to many carers, who know what the answer is. We have staff whose clients go into hospital, but yet they're not put on rota to look after anybody else.
Thank you, Deputy.
Can you address it, please, Taoiseach?
Yes, and first of all, I want to say that I think appreciate the issues that you've raised and the individual cases that you've raised, and it's not satisfactory that any person would have to go through that in relation to access to home care. The issue, as you know, isn't one of funding now, because 151 million of additional funding, 150 million was provided in 2021 to provide for 5 million more hours of home support, and that funding has been maintained in 2022. That obviously required significantly enhanced recruitment, and it has become a recruitment issue. The total number of people waiting for home support across the system has gone down from 9,000 at the start of 2020 to about 4,500 now at the end of this month. But we want to get that down to 0. And it will mean recruitment and reducing and getting rid of barriers to recruitment. And there's work underway in that, as you know, in terms of the group that has been established to deal with specific obstacles to recruiting carers and home carers in particular. And I think, again, I'll ask the Minister to work with you in respect of those 2 cases. And across Wexford, the numbers have come down from about 700 to 400 who are waiting, with a targeted approach being adopted. So, like very significant initiatives were taken in the last budget around carers, and it straddles a number of government departments, and from social protection, and we have a Minister for State dealing with the whole area of additional hours and home help hours in particular, and very significant progress was made in securing the resources. The biggest challenge we have right now is recruiting people to work in home care capacities. That's the biggest challenge facing us, and that's something that we have to do better on, notwithstanding the progress that has been made in respect of external recruitment into the country as well.
As tools, and the reality is the recruitment is not the only issue. You've been saying that now for 2 years. I'm elected over 2 years and I've been hearing it for 2 years. The lists are getting longer. Despite the fact that, oh yes they are. Yes they are in certain areas. You can shake your head all you like. I've only given you 2 of my constituents. I could give you 102. I only have 3 minutes. And rather than see you shaking your head, I want to see an audit of how administration is being carried out. 26 hours is what most carers are tasked with delivering. Do you know what the average delivery is? 19. So there is always 7 hours going a begging that nobody seems to take care of. And I know this because I've talked to the previous staff. I've had exit interviews with staff who have left the HSE, which clearly the HSE don't even do. So it's about time you stop making excuses and blaming the tools. Start to look at the real issues. It is not just recruitment. There are many issues, and we need KPIs, key performance indicators, for the staff that you've given the highest level of wage in this country to. They are the ones who are responsible to see that this is working, and it is not working, but it is in place to keep people in their homes, to keep the taxpayer giving them value for money, allowing people to be cared for in their homes. It only works if it works.
Thank you, Deputy Taoiseach.
2.9 million extra hours were delivered last year. That's a KPI now. You can shake your head all you like, that happened. Okay? And also 55,000 people receive home care. Do we want to improve it? Yes. Do we want to do more? Yes. And we're going to do more. And recruitment is a significant issue.
Please,
I just want to make the point, in addition to that, there were increases in terms of the carers allowance itself, capital disregard and so forth, a lot of initiatives made which were welcomed by the Carers Association and carers groups at the time of the budget. That also happened. And the bottom line is this.
And you can't decipher between spin and delivery. 9.5 million were sanctioned. None were delivered.
I would respectfully suggest that you can't either. And I will accept that there's not a day in the week that someone will not be able to point to a particular case. But what you cannot do, Deputy,
7 hours lying in our own urine,
is using one particular individual case, is to say that there has been no increase, or to say that there's been no reductions, as you have said. There has been reductions. And again, you've interrupted now every second of my response. And if you're making points, the least you could do is have the courtesy to hear the response. I've offered you a meeting with the Minister in respect of any individual cases you have, and to deal with that. The Minister Mary Butler has been meeting people up and down the country in relation to this, has been more into action than any Minister for Health that I've seen in recent times. And that's not costing aspersions to anyone that went before Minister Butler, but she's on top of her brief here, and she is working extremely hard to deal with this issue, and has secured the additional funding for home health hours. Recruitment is an issue. Do not try and dismiss that. It is a big issue because we've expanded it so much in such a short space of time.